Amen. In our last study, we looked at Hiram Edson's work on the 2520 in 1856, and we saw that the church is already in a Laodicean condition. We also studied William Miller's understanding of the 2520. We saw it was different to what most people think. We started off basically with a blank line with just two waymarks, but we see that we have enough information to actually fill in that line with quite some detail, and it becomes an interesting line of history, I think. We saw his logic. He has two 1260s, two desolating powers. It's the motif or theme of the Millerite message, but he's forced by the first angel's message, by these angels who are coming to direct his mind, to split paganism into two parts. The historical part, which is basically Daniel 2, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, etc. And then a modern manifestation of all of that work as we see this beast rising up out of the sea, Revelation 13, developing into Revelation 17. And we see that even his understanding, which most people might say is not correct, actually has a really valid and important present truth application, even though there are some things that are not quite right as we would understand them. We wouldn't understand that the 1 hour is this 46-year period, this 45-year period. We'd see it's only the Sunday law history.
That's right. You said that he was this fear was governed by the first angel message. How related is the first angel message to what Noah came up with?
Okay, so I said that he has to do it this way because of the first angel's message. The first angel's message is directing him. What did I mean by that, my sister? I'm not sure. Sister Joy?
The judgment, the first angel's message is concerning the judgment hour message, pointing to judgment in 1843.
So the first angel's message is pointing us to 1843. So his line must take us to 1843. So it was that connection that I was making, that he wants to take us to 1843 because that's where the first angel's message is telling him to go. When we go to early writings, 229, I think someone said, we see that angels are directing his mind, and Ellen White speaks about they give him the chain of truth, or the commencement of the chain of truth. We go to his own writings. I think it's in his Apologies, volume 2, where he says, I came up with 3 commencement dates: 677, 457, 508, 3 time prophecies, 2300 days, 1335, and the original one, the 2520. Remember, is it safe to say he makes that one up? It's not a proper or pucker time prophecy. He's going to manufacture that from Leviticus 26, where he takes the 7 times. And hopefully we understand the logic of that. But primary intent and then secondary applications. But the force of his argument is all of these 3 prophecies take you to the year 1843, which is where the first angel's message is guiding them. So that's why he creates this line that way. He's fully aware of 723, 538, 1798, but he's doing something different. And I'm saying he's being guided and directed, I'm saying, by the first angel to look at it that way. So I wanted to cover that. I want to just quickly review what we spoke about yesterday. So yesterday we with the two passages, which was 5 MR and 13 MR. And the reason why we looked at those two passages let me go one step back before we do that. Remember, we're seeing that the Millerite reform line from Matthew 24 verses 29 to 30, even into 31, we can't do this. We can't make 1798 to 1844, Daniel 7:13, the cloud, we can't line that up with the original intent of Revelation 1:7, where he comes in a cloud, which is being spoken about in 24:30. Does everybody remember that? Everybody okay with that? So we have to look at this in a different way. They're different events, and if we try to line them up, I don't know how we're going to express that. Maybe we could say we're moving the waymarks. I don't know if some of us might be persuaded that it's an application to do that. And if that's what you think, does anybody think that, by the way? Maybe you think we're making an application that we could do that. Nobody? Okay. So I don't think it is, but I'm willing to be corrected on that if you could show that you can make an application and line them up. I'm not convinced that you can. I think it's nicer and neater to line this up properly, this history. So someone was asking me, does that mean we're creating new waymarks in the Millerite line? I guess that's one way of expressing it. 1850 is not new. We've known about 1850 for a long time, well over a decade now. So that's not new. That should have taught us that we can't finish the Millerite line in 1844. It has to at least go to 1850. And when you start understanding what 1850 is, which is the loud cry or the message of the third angel that now needs to go to the world, you now know that there must be some further history there. So that's part of the argument about 1863, why I'm saying that their line should extend to 1863. So we'll summarise that. Then when we did that, I wanted to draw our attention to what 13MR is teaching us. We've already spoken about 1848. How did we introduce 1848 into our story? Why did we introduce 1848 into our story? Anyway, why did it come up? Who remembers how we did that? Because we've got 1844, we've got 1850, and now we've just said, oh, let's start talking about 1848.
So we talk about two things. One, in 1848, that was the time
Speak louder, I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
the Adventists were preparing to give out the sealing message to the world in 1848. In regard to the business of making the chaos that was going on in Europe. Yeah, all the time happened in 1848.
My brother? Why do we talk about 1848?
From the study that we were doing, we wanted to find out where we are going to locate the list of nations. And from the quote that we read in the 90s, which were indeed, it took us to the list of the powers of Europe, which was given in 1858.
My brother?
From the structure we found in Luke,
This one here.
and that one there. So we came to realize that there is a earth and powers of heaven in the future of exactly. And so by the fact that we took 1868 to be the second advent or the end, so we had to find those two events to be fitting within that history post 1854. I think that's how we came up with 1848.
Okay, so Brother Rogers, do you want to?
Okay, I think this phrase from the book of Luke, distress of nations, Brother Wilson defined distress to be the angering of the nations, which is tied with Revelation 11:18. Then he directed us to that the witness for him tying distress with anger of the nations is from the book Al Writings 41. So we were led to go and read Al Writings 41, but we found that Al Writings 41 is speaking about the 1848. So then from there we began to explore the 1848.
Okay, so I want us to remember how we even introduced 1848. So now we've introduced a new waymark into our line. We've got 1844 and we've got 1850. The movement has been aware of 1848 for a long while. It's not some new thing. But we've never really incorporated it into a Millerite reform line. And the reason we haven't done that is because our focus has been 1844. So I want to shift our focus not to have 1844 as the end of their line. As soon as you start doing that, now you have to start considering 1848. So we went to Loughborough, we went to Early Writings 41. Where else did we go to? We went to her biographies. Sorry? Which was Loughborough's work. And when we started seeing that, we went to a couple of other places. Some of her, I think they were probably contained in all of that history. We started seeing that she had started having visions. In the beginning of the year, 1848, the Millerites have realised that they need to begin to share the third angel's message to the world. They start having discussions of how they're going to do that. They haven't come to a position on it. The third angel's message is now matured. At the same time, over in Europe, there's a series of revolutions that are starting. We picked up that they started in France. Encyclopedia Britannica says it starts in Sicily. I haven't looked at why they say that or what's going on in Sicily. So there obviously must be some reason for that. So we've seen that there's some discussion going on about what's going on in Europe. As the Millerites start to discuss that they want to start speaking about the third angel's message, this is not just an internal discussion. They start talking to people outside of their circle. They're saying, we're now talking about the third angel's message, the Sabbath issue. They begin to agitate it. And their first day Adventists, friends, colleagues, whatever you want to call them, they push back and say what? It's too late. You've left your message too late because this is the beginning of the Battle of Armageddon. So there's this dialogue that goes on. The year progresses, and by the time you get to November 18th, December 16th, Ellen White is having further visions on this subject, and she tells us what? Those visions, what are they going to direct us to and teach us? Publish. She says, God told me that He selected James White, and he needs to begin publishing, and his publishing work of the third angel is going to do this great work. So this is where it all begins. So by the time we get to 1848, then we can get to 1850, and 1850 is, we're marking the loud cry, it's when they begin to do public evangelism, and this is the tool or the ensign that they're going to use. And there's this great publishing work that's going on. The publishing work has been going on for 2 years now, by the time you get to 1850. Now, instead of focusing on the publishing work that she had a vision about, people are starting to do some strange things. So what are the strange things that they're doing? They're getting into the chart making business. So we read this, 359 paragraph 1. This is taken from a manuscript, 1853. This is written in 1853. And she says that the chart making business that's going on, which I don't know if anybody's looked at Rhodes and Case, is all wrong. Anybody looked at that or no? So I'm not going to reread the passage, but let's just summarize what she was saying. The publishment of the chart by Otis Nichols, which is the 1850 chart, this one here, this was the one that was designed by God. We saw that God was in the publishment of that chart. He directed Ellen White to produce that chart. She had a vision about this chart, and it's the fulfillment of Habakkuk 2. So we've got all of that information. She saw that the figures or the representation of angels and of Jesus on these other charts was uncouth and disgusting. And so what we did was we made an application of that. Before we made the application, and we've said that this is the loud cry, we marked that the loud cry is a parallel to the midnight cry. And in the midnight cry history, when we take the Millerite understanding, which was July, and our understanding that it's August, because we make a distinction between July and August, we don't normally factor in Concord, the 1st of August, but we're now beginning to do that. We see that they have a singular message. There's only one voice. No one has any direction. But what we do want to mark is from April, at least up to July, and I'm suggesting even further, there are many voices still there who are suggesting one thing or suggesting another. They're trying to come up with reasons about what's going on. We know that's the case because that's what we call, what's the word that we use for that history? They've entered into? No, they're not into Laodicea in the Millerite history. Sorry? Fanaticism. We call it fanaticism. Now, fanaticism is like a dirty word. But I want to say fanaticism is in a group like this, we all have different ideas. It's not that you're good and this brother's bad because you've got a good idea and he's got a bad idea. It's not a subject of morality when we think about fanaticism. So I want to sort of pull away from that concept. It's not about good people or bad people. It's about good ideas and bad ideas, or just different ideas. So even in this history, even though we don't normally mark it, you can see that there are these various different ideas. But Ellen White says that the midnight cry did what? In the context of fanaticism, what does it do? It swept away the fanaticism. Now, it's not done that by July, has it? Because by the time you get to August, Bates is standing up, and he's a fanatic, isn't he? He has no message, doesn't know what he's talking about. The people who are running the camp is out of control, isn't it? I mean, they're not even exerting their God-given authority to get those fanatics from Watertown and eject them from the camp. They're bearing with them. Why would they bear with them? Is it just because they're all nice people? I'm suggesting not. I'm suggesting the reason they're bearing with these people is because they don't have the moral or prophetic authority to shut them down. And their moral authority comes from their prophetic authority. So Bates is not the leader, he's not the camp leader. Can't remember what his name is. I think it begins with the M. I don't know if anybody remembers his name. It's this other brother, you've probably never heard of him before. He's in charge of the camp and he's saying to people, just leave them alone, don't let them disturb your camp. Just don't go into their tent when they're playing their drums and having their fancy music. But people keep on getting drawn to them. He should have just sent them away, but he doesn't. And I'm saying he doesn't is because this person is directionless. Bates is in the same situation. Everybody's bored with his presentations. So when you get to August now and snow comes, this is where we mark the midnight cry. It's because at this point everything dies. The people from Watertown pack their tent up. I think they leave early. No one's listening to them. Now the message begins to gain traction. They leave that camp and everyone is excited except Miller and Himes. Himes controls what?
Publishing.
He controls the publishing work. This is like the YouTube channels, the websites, in the equivalent. He controls them, and he's saying what about Snow's message? It's not going to be published. It's not going to publish Snow's message. So what does Snow do? Opens up his own YouTube channel, buys his own camera and says, okay, I'll record my own presentation, upload them, and I'll do it myself. So he makes his own magazine called True Midnight Cry. I think they only do one volume of it. Is it 22nd of August? He publishes it. I think it's only one edition that they do, because by the time you get to the end of August, Himes is starting to relent. So what they end up doing is they end up republishing Snow's work, and there begins to become an acceptance of what he's teaching. So we say in this history, there's only one voice, nothing contending. By the way, what does Miller say to Himes? I don't mean to have a one-on-one conversation. In print, what does he say about Snow and his message? He calls him a fanatic. I'm not saying he uses the word literally. He says what Snow is teaching is fanaticism. And what is Snow teaching? One word. Time. He's teaching time, and Miller, we don't have one-to-one parity from Millerite history to our history. That man is not a man in our history or a sister. Don't misread that. The leader of the movement in that history says you've entered into fanaticism because you're time setting. And what's Miller's logic? What's Miller's logic to say you've entered into fanaticism? Any ideas? My brother? Brother Wilson?
No.
Sorry?
No.
No one knoweth. He says, let's go to the Bible verse. No one knows the day and the hour when Christ is going to come. What are you talking about? It's only recently that Miller has been the advocate who would fight against that Bible verse. And now he's using the Bible verse of the enemies against his own people. You think about how bad things have got in this history. So his problem is they've hit April the 19th and they made this huge mistake. Everything's gone bad and he doesn't know what to do anymore. And he's saying, we should never have done all of this time setting. We should have just left it like I had it originally. Maybe, approximately, it might be. I'm not 100% sure. We should have just left it vague so we could not get trapped. And he got forced by this chart to get in line with the movement. The movement was going in one direction. He gets forced into that. And the whole movement gets wrecked on April the 19th. So when Snow resurrects the same issue, Miller has had enough and he rebukes him and says, you can't time set. We've been proven to be wrong. And the worst thing is he uses the same quote that he used to resist. So you can see how bad things have got in the movement. So I want us to see that August, July, this fairy tale picture that we have, like fanaticism melts like the frost when the sun hits it or something like that. It's not the real version. That's Ellen White's kind of idolized fairy tale version of what it is. And we pick that up and we think that's what it looked like. It was ugly. There were people fighting against one another. Miller is brutally attacking Snow. Snow says, if you won't publish my work, I'll start my own magazine up. It's not a beautiful rosy picture. I want us to see that. Then we come to the loud cry, 1850. These people are getting into chart making business. They're having disgusting charts, and this is displeasing to God. It's all wrong. So you have competing voices. All of these people are producing these charts to promulgate, to promote the third angel's message, which is the message of the hour, which is the loud cry message. And Ellen White says, you should not be doing this. What should they be doing? We read it in, I think, the 5 MR passage. They should have been focusing on the work 2 years ago, which was the publishing work. They should have been behind the publishing work. Where should they have been putting their money? In the publishing work, not their money producing charts. So that's one point we see. The other thing is they should have rallied behind the 1850 chart, which was the one that had the signature of God. Instead of doing that, everybody wants to make a name for themselves and become famous and get into the chart making business. So all of this looks ugly. So you have competing voices here. Not everybody is in line or in tune with what God's will is here in 1850. And they should have learnt their lesson from 1848. So 1848 and 1850 now are connected. Can we see that? What's the connection between 1848 and 1844, Brother William? What's the connection between 44 and 48? One theme.
The connection between, in one word.
Sorry?
In one word.
In one word?
I see the connection between 1844 and 1848 in one word.
Tell me that last word you're saying, in one?
One.
It doesn't have to be one word, but even a little phrase, but don't make it a big story. I've got 50 and 48. And I'm saying the connection between these two is publishing. What's the relationship between 48 and 44?
The third angel.
The third angel. Are we all okay with that? So it's the third angel that's going to connect these two together. Oh, let me redraw that in a different way. What are we now doing, that we've noted already, that we should do? What are we beginning to do? We've got Isaiah 28, verse 17. We've got judgment, we've got righteousness, we've got a line and plummet, so we've created a line. What are we now supposed to do now? We've got our waymarks. We want to create or develop we need to develop a story. If you don't do that, you expose yourself to great danger. And this is where we're at the moment. I'm suggesting here in 1850, here in 2018, we're exposing the movement to great danger because we're not developing waymarks using a storyline. And it's dangerous to do that. If there's anything I want you to leave this school with is two things. Proof texting is dangerous, and so is creating lines or reform lines if you don't have a storyline attached to it. Are we okay with that? If you proof text on its own without checking context, you'll make mistakes like cloud and cloud. And you end up into problems. So what I kind of start doing now is taking a needle with a thread and threading it through these holes here, so that I want to reinforce this idea that we need to get a connection between waymarks. So this is 44, and this is 48, and this is 50. She has a vision to publish. This is the loud cry, and this is the 50 chart, which is going to now be published. 44 is the third angel's message. 48 is about the third angel's message. So this is the third angel's message here. I'll use that thread to do it. So it's the third angel's message. What is the vision about when it talks about publishing? What are they even meant to be publishing now? What subject? The third angel. So it's the third angel running through this history, and it's the third angel running through this history. So what's tying these three waymarks together is a consistent theme. It's the third angel's message. What is the third angel's message in this dispensation? What is going on here about the third angel? What are they doing? They're studying. So this is studying. What's happened by 1848 that Loughborough taught us? The third angel's message it's now matured. It's matured, but in the beginning of the year, they don't know what to do with this matured message. So they start kind of talking to people in an ad hoc fashion. You First Day Adventists, you got it all wrong. It's not Sunday, it's Sabbath. This is the message of the hour. And they say, it's too late. Haven't you seen what's happening in Europe? Armageddon's just about to hit, and you're talking about some obscure doctrine from Exodus chapter 20, which has no relevance. So they don't know what to do. As the year progresses, Ellen White formalizes and explains to them how they're supposed to give and share the third angel's message. It's not through messengers only. It's through the publishing work. So you can already begin to see, what is she showing us? That you've got a fair bit of time before things start ending. Let me put it that way. Now 50 to 63 is only 13 years. It's a very short amount of time in the scale of things. But it's enough time for them to begin to do this great work of publishing. And people were arguing at that time, especially in the spring, you've only got 3 speakers. James White, Ellen White, and Joseph Bates. So obviously they're the 3 recognised preachers or teachers. And they're saying, you haven't got any money, you've got no infrastructure, you've got nothing. How do you expect to build everything up while Armageddon's just about to begin? You'd agree with that logic, wouldn't you? If Armageddon's about to begin, it's all a bit late now. Ellen White is going to be like a pin in a sure place. She's indicating that they've got plenty of time. So those one group of people are rushing to say, you need to get stuff sorted out because there's no time left. And Ellen White is saying, we need to be measured and be careful and do things systematically. Where are we today? Are we running around like headless chickens saying, well, there's no time left, we've only got 12 months and counting, and we're at panic stations? Or should we be more measured and more careful in what we're doing based upon what we're seeing? All of this is happening between 48 and 50. What should our approach be based upon that line? Should be the second, shouldn't it? Should be the latter one. We should be more measured and more careful. And we're running in panic stations because we think the end of the world is here, because it's Raphia, November the 9th, next year, close the probation, and we've got all some varying ideas about what that means, about what close the probation actually looks like. And rather than studying what the close of probation means to us, we're talking about Armageddon. You heard anybody talk about Armageddon? No, you haven't. What is our Armageddon? Sorry?
It means mountain and then...
I'm not asking for a definition of what Armageddon is.
World War III.
So World War III, it's the end of the world. We're focusing upon the end, and we should be focusing on what are they supposed to be doing? Publishing. Publishing what? The message to whom? A group of people who haven't heard it or haven't accepted it. We should be focusing on going and giving a message, publishing a work to those brethren who haven't heard or understood what's going on. And rather than that, we've got fixated about Armageddon, the end of the world, the Third World War. We have to ask ourselves, are we headed in the right direction?
Question. Yeah, in that history, the information there were many voices, many judgments produced. Of course, there were many voices about what to be done, about how much the message should go, and there was a prophet of God within, and he had to direct the course of the tickets. What do we move from here? Many voices about 9 seconds, you don't have a prophet. What should be the guide?
He said, are you certain? One said, brother said, we don't have a prophet. And he said, are you certain? Is that what you said? Okay, just make sure that's got recorded. He's not saying there's a prophet. He just asked, are you sure we haven't got a prophet? Carry on.
Yeah, that is the question. Where do we move on? How can we know which voice to follow?
How do you know who speaks for God and who doesn't? I read in John chapter 10. So did you.
You must have his voice.
The sheep know the voice of God. Every single one of you, me, us, you're required to know which is the true voice, which is not, which is the true chart, and which is not. How do you know what is the true chart? Through the methodology.
Because the methodology is the voice of God.
The methodology is the voice of God.
The true methodology.
The true methodology.
Argue like Isaiah says that if they speak not according to the testimony and to the law, there is no truth in them. So you have to base your teachings on the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. That's how you know the true church.
Okay? We have to be careful about this, don't make it into a toxic study. Where's our prophet? What are your thoughts on this? No thoughts?
At the moment, they don't have.
Sorry?
Not at the moment.
You don't have any thought, but you just open up the possibility. Yeah. Okay, you must know. No, I'm not going to let you get away with that. No, you must have some thoughts, because we've been speaking about prophets for 3 years, 2015-ish. We've been speaking about prophets for 3 years, so you know a bit more about prophets than just say, I don't know. What do you know about prophets? I'm going to rephrase it about the gift, the gifts of God. We'll use it that way.
We've been talking about the gift of prophecy being restored in our history. We've come up with a number of lines and logics to show how that gift is going to be restored.
So let me just clarify that, so that, because it's an important point, some people can't hear it and the camera might not pick it up. For some time, I'm suggesting around 3 years, because I don't think we picked it up in 2014. I don't think it was that early. We began to develop various lines, you tell me if I'm not saying it correctly, various lines to show that there's going to be a restoration of the gifts, and one of those gifts is the gift of prophecy. There may have been other ones like the gift of healing or dreams and visions, etc., but certainly the gift of prophecy.
Okay, so we had a number of ways to explain how that gift of prophecy is going to be restored, and one of them was hedged upon the Mara vision. Now, that gift of prophecy is not, as Morioki is trying to say, like, to the law and to the testimony. It's more than that. It's not about the methodology. I think it's more than that. So the gift of prophecy is supposed to be restored. We've been saying that it's going to be restored at the binding off, but the question becomes, what will be the use of the gift of prophecy at the binding off when everything is when everything is done for the priesthood? So there are lines and there are logics to show that the gift of prophecy is going to be restored, and probably the discussion should be at what time.
Okay, so let's have a quick discussion about that. Is there a Spirit of Prophecy quote where we talk about the restoration of the gifts? If someone can find that. As they're finding that, I just want to reiterate this point here before we take it off the board.
And I think another point is, in every reform line there is an active gift of prophecy that is normally there. You can see it in all the reform lines, and it always comes before the shadow.
Okay, hold on to both of those 2 points. First of all, where do we place it? And we definitely see in reform lines. So hold on to remember those 2 points. So I just want to address this again. So what we've done is we've got 1844. We're clear on that. We've gone to Matthew 24, and we say you can't put verse 30 in 1844. It's the second advent. 1844 was never ever going to be the second advent. It was never God's will. Whether the Millerites got it right or wrong, it was never going to happen. So I'm suggesting it's 63 when that's going to be fulfillment of that. Part of the logic of that is 1850. We've seen 1850, this chart. What precedes 1850 is 1848. We've got 1848 from a combination of a number of verses, primarily from Luke 21. But then we also went to Revelation 11, verse 18, the angering of the nations. And when we started looking at that, we saw that in 1848, there was something going on in Europe which was called the Spring Revolution. We should remember the Spring Revolution because we had a Spring Revolution in our history. Does anybody know what year that was? That's 2011. 2011, the Middle Eastern Spring Revolutions began. So we haven't discussed any of that. We may not discuss it, but I just want to... It's not an accident. The phrase didn't just come up. It was a Spring Revolution. It's a fulfillment of prophecy. It has to be. We do the same thing with the Time magazine articles that speak about 1989, where it picks up phrases like the whirlwind and the Tsar of Russia. All of those kind of things, we place them as prophetic fulfillments of... Anyway, I won't make that point. So we've got 1850, 1863, we've got 1848 now, and we need to see that there's a story that runs through this, and it's the third angel's message that's running through. Third angel's message arrives. It's cold, no light. According to Loughborough's, not Loughborough's logic, in Loughborough's book, this is Ellen White's vision that Bates is narrating. It starts off cold, no light. It begins to grow and warm. Now in 48, it's matured. By 50, it's fixed and firm. And 50, we've got here, which you need to go back to. She says the third angel's message is the 1850 chart. So we've got a connection between all of those three. What we need to do is take all of these three events and bring them now into our line at various fractal levels. We'd have to do that, which I began to do, and I'm saying 1850, the loud cry, is 2018. 2018, there's a controversy or there's many voices that are going on about what is the midnight cry or the loud cry message. So we've done that. We'd have to go back and see what 1848 is. We haven't discussed that in this class, what that is. So we could make an assertion of what that is. I'll put it down here now without talking about it. What year? Okay, so enough. I heard 2 people say it, so enough people know that. 2016 is what we're suggesting that this is. And then if we were going to follow through with that, what would 63 be? That would be... Okay, so some people said no, some people say yes.
I've got this that quote.
Oh, okay, so which quote? About
restoration of prophetic gifts.
Okay, so hold on to that. Just want to finish this off and we're going to rub this off. And then if we were going to do this, what would this one be? This would be 2014. Okay, so what you have to be careful is when you take lines, you can make them do different things for you. You can make them do different things for you. And when you start making them do different things, Millerite waymarks can be placed at different places. I think we're all reasonably familiar with that. Just to be careful how you do it. So I picked up the concept of loud cry here, and I'm making an application of that. And then that would be 2016, 1848, and that would be 2014 if we were going to do that. So I'm not making any more comment on that. I just want to put that in place. So I'm going to take that out. And what we're looking at now is how do we know what is the correct chart? That was the question. And yesterday we said, you know, it's the correct chart because the prophet made the chart. It's got the prophet's backing, if you like. Then we said, well, how do you know which is the right one today? And I'm saying John 10, my sheep hear my voice and they know. And then we're saying, what is the voice of God? It's the methodology. I think all of us would agree with that. So Brother Robert said, my brother said we don't have a prophet, and he said, well, how do you know we don't have a prophet? So we're just exploring that, and we've switched from the word prophet to the gifts, the restoration of the gifts. So we want to talk about the restoration of the gifts. So there's 2 points we want to talk about, 1 and 2. One of them is the restoration, and that's going to have the question when. And the other one is about lines. The lines show the gift, spiritual gifts, the gift of prophecy, if we can express it that way. So before we do the restoration of the gifts, let's look at this one, the lines. So we'll go to a couple of lines, and we'll just do this in a really simple way. Let's go to the line of Moses. What are we looking for? What are we looking for, Brother Robert?
The gift
of. So we're looking for the gift of prophecy. So can we see the gift of prophecy in the line of Moses? Explain.
As we see the line of Moses, Moses was raised by God as a prophet to deliver his people. But the end of his work, God is going to raise up another prophet, who is Joshua. Yeah, we can see Moses and Joshua.
So we could just easily go to Deuteronomy 18:18 and identify him as a prophet. Anything else that we can see about the gift of prophecy? Got 18:18, raising him as the prophet. We've got Joshua.
Okay, you can see also when he was in the wilderness, taking care of the sheep, and now there's that sign that God, the burning bush, then called Moses becomes curious to go and see the burning bush.
So on Mount Horeb, he meets God, and then what?
And then we have a one-on-one conversation with God. And then God tells him, I want you to go now, to go and bring out the children of Israel who are in bondage in Egypt.
And he says, I'm not doing that job.
I'm not doing that job because
they won't believe me.
And also I don't have that capability to communicate. And then he says, I'll give you a person who will accompany you. So there are two. He calls Aaron, and then he said that you will be Aaron will be your mouthpiece. You'll be saying, and then Aaron will be communicating.
So he says to Moses, "You're God,
yes,
and Aaron is your prophet." So we've got Aaron as a prophet. Brother Robert.
Oh, okay, I just wanted to note that perhaps for me, when I look for the prophets in the light, I'll be looking for what is the right calls prophets in the strictest sense.
Okay.
So, like, I don't know whether Joshua was a prophet to the strictest sense. To the strictest sense will be what is describing face to face one-on-one. Yeah, there's something that Sister tries to differentiate between two kinds of prophets. And for me, when I'm looking for the gift of prophecy, I will be looking for at least in
the strictest sense. So give me some kind of measure to make it strictest sense. Face-to-face communication.
Yeah, receiving direct visions from the Lord.
Direct.
Yeah, at least in those ancient times.
Okay. So when Joshua is in Canaan and he meets the captain of the Lord's host, is that direct communication?
Yeah, but but
I'm okay with the but what? But no. I'm not. I'm just asking because what your definition was, because he seems to speak directly with Jesus. That's Jesus, isn't it? Yes. That is Jesus. So the same thing. Take off your shoes because you're talking to me. So this is the voice piece of God, and without this prophet, the movement would just not have any direction. They wouldn't know what to do. God says, whatever you say, the people have to do. Anything else?
Can I have this? When now they have come from Egypt, they're in wilderness, we can see Aaron and Miriam. They start to fight. Moses said that you are the one. You are assuming that God is only God can communicate through you, and then this God hits Miriam with the
leprosy.
So we can see many voices also with many voices. They are starting out to fight with voices. So God is using.
Can someone find the Bible verse where it says Moses is a special person? He says, I speak to other prophets this way, this one. You found the verse, yeah?
Numbers 12, verse 6.
Numbers 12, verse 6.
Deuteronomy 34:10.
Deuteronomy
34:10.
Okay, so we'll read the Numbers one first.
And he said, "Hear now my..."
Oh, 1 second. The people are still finding it. Numbers 12:6. Whilst I agree that you can make Joshua a prophet, I think it's Moses is really the one that we should be focusing on this line. I know Joshua has face-to-face communication. I'll use his phrase. In the strictest sense, it's Moses. Moses is that person.
So it says, and he said, "Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches, and the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore, then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant?
What does the word apparently mean?
Yes.
Apparently. Who's got that? Sorry?
It's more like a view as appearance. You don't see.
Apparently is what word? Okay, so we okay that it's Mare.
It's Mare, and the word vision in verse 6 is Mare.
Okay, so that's the other one I wanted to pick up. So the word vision and apparently is Mare and Marah. At this level, it's the same thing. If we're okay to do that, one's a cause, one's an effect, but it's basically a direct, face-to-face communication or revelation of God. So, someone just explain that verse to us. What's God saying? Go ahead, please.
I think generally Moses is not like any other prophet. He is more than a prophet.
Everyone okay with that? Sorry? She didn't hear what you said. We have to speak a bit louder. It doesn't project into the back of the room.
I think Moses is not like any other prophet. He is more than a prophet.
So most visions, most prophets, God's going to communicate to them through this Marah vision. And when you get to verse 8, he says, with Moses, how is he going to do it? He's going to do that with the Marah vision. That's the masculine, that's the Marah, face to face. And normal prophets, they have the Marah vision, which is the feminine, which is this way that people end up collapsing and they can't cope and they can't handle that pressure. So there's some subtle differences between them. If we took the word Marah in verse 6, what's the normal word for it besides vision? Mirror. Does everybody know that? It's mirror. So the feminine version is the mirror, and the masculine is this appearance or face-to-face communication. How do we see things in the mirror?
Vision.
When you look in the mirror, what are you going to be looking at? You're looking at yourself. So this is subtle difference between the two. Okay, so that's enough about Moses. Oh yeah, sorry.
Something that Moses was also a gathering prophet, and his name signifies to his ministry. He means gathering from the waters, where you know the waters were set out of flood. He was to gather the children of Israel from Egypt. And we also believe that, we also know from Ezekiel, Pharaoh is recognized as the dragon. And you know the dragon will cast a flood upon the woman in Revelation.
So he's a gathering prophet, and his name means to draw out of water. And that water is Egypt. The Nile is just a symbol of that, but it's Egypt, out of the world. What else did you say?
I say that he himself, his name symbolizes the ministry that he is to do.
So that's his job, is to draw the people out of Egypt. And then you said, Ezekiel?
I was saying that Ezekiel calls Pharaoh the dragon, and the waters also can symbolize blood. So the Pharaoh is called the dragon in Ezekiel. And so I was trying to show how they are connected to show that the dragon is the one that will cast a flood upon the woman who is the church. And so the woman, in this sense, we are seeing that is the children of Israel who are being persecuted in Egypt.
Good. So we've looked at the line of Moses, and we can see that there's the gift of prophecy in that line. So we'll close here, and we'll look at the line of Christ and the Millerite line to see if we can see prophets there, and then we'll have some discussion about when the gifts are going to be restored in our line to see where we should be expecting to see a prophet. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we give you praise and thanks for your goodness. We ask for a blessing upon the study that we're doing. Help us to continue to be able to run a thread through our thoughts so that we won't lose a stitch. Help us, Lord, to continue to grapple with your word, and as we have a clearer revelation of the truth that we're supposed to understand here at the end of the world, may it have an impact upon our characters. We ask for a special blessing upon the activities of this day, also for a blessing upon the food that we're to eat. In Jesus' name, Amen.